Good morning and welcome to this event that we have organized in the context of the Just Peace Month by the City of The Hague. Today, in this first session, we have two prosecutors with us, Ladislav Hamran, President of Eurojust and National Member for Slovakia, and Boštjan Škrlec, National Member for Slovenia. My name is Esther Karolini. I work in the Eurojust Corporate Communications team. Let me tell you what we have planned for today. After the opening statement by the President of Eurojust, you will get a chance to visit our building, as in a video tour. After that, Boštjan can tell you about his experience as a prosecutor working at Eurojust, and we'll have time for questions from your side. You can ask questions already in the chat function, and we'll collect these and try to answer as many of these as possible in the end of the session. We are also live on Twitter. Please follow us and share your messages with hashtag Team Eurojust and hashtag Eurojust. Ladislav, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Esther. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to see that so many of you joined Eurojust in this virtual way and actually signed up for a virtual tour. During next hour, you will learn a lot about Eurojust, about the work of a prosecutor working in international organization like Eurojust is. And I hope that you will find all this information and time spent very useful. It's great to see that so much of you are interested in our work. Actually, I was informed that we have registration from 36 countries involving 39 nationalities. So many thanks for joining us. So the opening statement would be actually too fancy title for my presentation. Actually, I decided, having known that we have a very diverse audience today. We have young students, we have general public, we have also colleagues who are experts in the field. So I think it's important simply to set the scene and to be all on the same page. So instead of having a formal opening statement, I decided to tell you a little story about three little islands. And on those three little islands demonstrate the work of Eurojust and of our role in the international cooperation. So once upon a time, there were three happy little islands, and they were living for centuries in happiness and prosperity, peace. And unfortunately, at a certain point, an organized criminal group decided to exploit those little islands and actually decided that they will operate a drug trafficking business from those three islands. So on island A, they set up illegal laboratories. These laboratories were producing synthetic drugs, and these drugs were exported to the next island, to island B. So these drugs were distributed to the local network of drug dealers. And this was a rich island, and people, youngsters on this island simply were bored and they wanted to have more fun, so they were buying drugs which were produced on island A. And then we have island C, a very happy island which was happy enough to have a local businessman, very rich one, who decided to invest his fortune on this island and to build bars, hotels, swimming pools, shops, magazines, and invested a huge amount of money in the infrastructure of the island. So this is more or less, in a simplified way, how organized crime operates today. Organized crime tries to spread the activities to different jurisdictions, to different islands involving different countries. Now, we as prosecutors, we operate in a different business model. First of all, we cannot travel to a different country and to investigate the crime outside of the territory of our little island. So coming back to those islands, of course, prosecutors on island A were aware that something is happening on this little island, that drugs are produced, but they wanted to know a bit more. They, of course, could have arrested perpetrators, those who were producing synthetic drugs. But they were curious and they wanted to see who is behind of this criminal network, where all these drugs go to. And they decided to open an investigation and start the investigation. Of course, prosecutors on country or in island B, they were also aware that drugs are coming to their little island and they are consumed there. And they were aware that all this business is very profitable and actually a huge amount of money is generated from this illegal business. Again, they could have arrested these criminals, local dealers, but they wanted to know a bit more. They wanted to disrupt the whole network, but for this, there were certain pieces of information missing. And Island C was still very happy, living in prosperity, and they had no information about any criminal activity on their little island. So welcome to my world. This is usually the starting point where Eurojust comes in. Usually from different intelligence sources or police reports, we know what is happening in country A, in country B, in this case island A or island B. However, those prosecutors involved, they had only partial information, only affecting their own islands. And thanks to institutions, agencies like Eurojust, we actually facilitate the judicial cooperation. Now, I decided to use this very simple example to demonstrate how we work, because facilitation, assisting, supporting, coordinating, all these words are rather abstract. And I would even say dry. So it's difficult to visualize what activities are behind. So actually, in these type of cases, Eurojust steps in and actually connects prosecutors from island A, B, and C. We bring prosecutors together and we start explaining them what is happening on their territory. And thanks to this information sharing, they usually decide to start an investigation. In that case, Island A and B decided to join joint investigation teams. Eurojust supports joint investigation teams, not only financially or logistically, but we also provide legal expertise and legal knowledge, and we help countries to negotiate joint investigation teams agreement. And after this first session meeting, which we usually call coordination meeting, countries started to investigate together this phenomenon. And soon they discovered that indeed drugs which are produced on island A are then exported to island B. And soon they were covering up the whole network of people involved in the business. And soon those countries discovered that a rich businessman who actually was investing or has been investing his fortune on island C is actually ahead of this organized criminal group, and all the money which is generated and invested on this island actually comes from this dirty drug trafficking business. And then Eurojust usually organizes another session, another coordination meeting, now with all three countries. And we also coordinate all these investigations. First of all, we put together all these different fractions which are related only to national investigations. So only to the investigations which are on these little islands. And the coordination effort is also very important because first of all, we have to make sure that one investigation on island B doesn't jeopardize the investigation on island B. And still, colleagues on island C are a little bit behind because for the money laundering investigation, they have to check the money flows. They have to actually check what's the origin of the income of this rich businessman. And we have to make a link between a criminal activity and dirty money. So sometimes they need more time to catch up with other countries. And this is our role, to make sure that countries involved communicate, they exchange information, they share evidence, and they proceed in their investigation in a coordinated manner. So this is our role, and again, welcome to Eurojust and welcome to my world of judicial cooperation.
Thank you very much, Ladislav. That was a very nice introduction. Now, I'm sure you're all curious where this is all happening. So we have prepared a very nice video for you, which you will get at least an idea of how our building serves all these important functions.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Torfin, and today I want to welcome you to explore this virtual tour of Eurojust, the European Union's Agency for Criminal Justice Cooperation. Created in 2002, Eurojust is located in The Hague, the Netherlands, in the international city of peace and justice. In this beautiful building, which was inaugurated in 2017, around 130 prosecutors and investigative judges from over 30 countries work side by side to tackle all forms of serious cross-border crime. They give hands-on assistance to their colleagues in the national judicial authorities who are working on international criminal investigations and prosecutions, tackling all forms of crime, serious cross-border crime, including terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking, cybercrime, or economic crimes such as money laundering. So why Eurojust? The European Union is based on freedom, and this is not just an abstract catchphrase, it's a principle that determines our daily lives. The free movement of goods, services, capital and persons gives us the opportunities we need to thrive economically, socially and personally. But to safeguard these principles, two other pillars of the EU are equally important: security and justice. We cannot allow criminals to take advantage of those freedoms. And as crime knows no borders, Europe needs to fight crime across borders as well. In this virtual tour, we offer you the possibility to take a closer look at how we are working and how this agency is set up. The Eurojust building is surrounded by a dune landscape and a water feature, which form a necessary security barrier. Together with the color scheme and materials used inside the building, including a lot of copper, the building intimately reflects the character of the host city, The Hague, a city in the dunes by the sea. So here we are in the lobby of the Eurojust building, and in fact, the structure of the building is also reflecting how Eurojust is set up. Here above me we have the low rise of the building, and this is where the national members and their teams have their offices. They are senior prosecutors and investigative judges who are seconded from the national judicial authorities and thus not employed by the EU, but representing the member states they come from. And usually the secondments to Eurojust last several years, meaning that they get to know each other very well, they build very close collegial relationships as a basis for creating trust and mutual understanding. And this is actually key to a good result, since judicial cooperation between sovereign states requires a thorough understanding of legal frameworks and of legal cultures. Over here, you can take the elevator up to the high-rise part of the building, and here about 240 support staff are working in what we call the administration of Eurojust. These are people who are directly employed by the agency and serving the national desks in their work. Judicial cooperation officers are available to help and assist the national representatives in the casework, and they also build the center of expertise in cross-border judicial cooperation that Eurojust forms. The experts also produce best practice reports and organize thematic events, for example for prosecutors specialized in a particular crime type, which regularly take place here. Other staff members ensure the security of the building, logistical services, IT systems, arrange translations and interpretation services, and ensure, of course, the proper management of budgets and of staff. Complex cross-border crime investigations can last several months or years, and they require careful planning and coordination and discussion, in which Eurojust and the national desks play a coordinating role. Let me now take you down to one of the coordination meeting rooms and tell you more about how this work is done. Here we are in one of the secure meeting rooms which are used to hold case-specific coordination meetings. The prosecutor in charge of the case can organize one or several such meetings so that all actors needed in the case can meet face-to-face in a secure environment. The number of countries and participants entirely depends on the case and may include judiciary, law enforcement, of course, and Europol. The European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Cooperation regularly participates, as well as representations of customs or food security authorities, depending on the crimes committed. And we also regularly have Olaf here, the EU Anti-Fraud Office. They meet here face-to-face or via a secure video conferencing system to share case information and case files, identify possible parallel investigations, and work out which country is best placed to prosecute a suspect. They also prepare the use of judicial cooperation instruments such as the European arrest warrant or European investigation order, and they also plan the collection of evidence, which is of course very important once the case goes to trial. There is a possibility to have simultaneous interpretation into all EU languages so that each participant can speak his or her own language, so that language doesn't become a barrier to understanding each other. Regularly, the countries are also assisted to form a joint investigation team. This is an agreement that enables direct cooperation between judiciary and law enforcement authorities for a specific purpose and a specific period of time. The advantage is that the partners in a JIT can cooperate more effectively, including directly collecting and exchanging evidence, and they can also be present during investigative measures on each other's territories. Complex coordinated actions can also result in the organization of a joint action day in which the countries come together to monitor the joint action day here from our coordination center. Here we are inside the coordination center from which such joint action days can be monitored and supported in real time with the assistance of Eurojust's casework unit. It has secure data connections and makes it possible to centralize continuous contacts between all the judicial authorities and law enforcement involved, immediately analyze the information as it is reported from the field, and take the required action. If you would like to step into the shoes of a prosecutor who is working here during one of those joint action days, please play our simulation game. It's a simulation of a coordination center, and we actually take you on a journey, step by step, what happens during one of those days. But this time, you're in charge. You have to take the decisions to bring the case to a successful close. Good luck. Now let's talk a bit about how Eurojust is governed. Each member state appoints a national member to Eurojust, and together they form Eurojust College. They run the operational work together, but they also take decisions on budget and on other managerial issues, such as the multi-annual programming of the agency. They meet every week in this room, which has an oval-shaped table, and this is very much reflecting the way they take their decisions, which is as a group. They appoint a president, who is seated over here, and 2 vice presidents, and they each serve a term of 4 years. In December 2019, the new Eurojust regulation entered into force, and this led to the creation of an executive board, which is supporting the college in its decision-making procedures and where the European Commission is also taking part. The 240 staff who are working in the administration of Eurojust are reporting to an administrative director. One of the artworks created especially for Eurojust stands outside of the building. It's a large bronze statue by Spanish sculptor Fernando Sánchez Castillo. It's called Reflection, and it portrays a woman seated on a rock in a position similar to that of Rodin's Thinker. As a way to celebrate the cultural diversity at Eurojust, the EU member state that holds the rotating EU presidency is also invited to offer a display of pieces of art in the Eurojust building.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that tour. I would like to remind you that you can ask questions in the chat, and I will pass the floor now to Boštjan Škrlec, our national member for Slovenia. Boštjan, please.
Thank you very much, Esther. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear visitors. It is my great honor and pleasure to greet you on behalf of the prosecutor, part of Eurojust at this virtual open day tour today. I will try to share with you personal, let's say, professional, practical experience from my work at Eurojust and explain how is it that we do at Eurojust what we are supposed to do. And what we are supposed to do was very nicely described by our president, my dear colleague Ladislav, who gave you the idea of 3 little islands in the ocean which could represent different jurisdictions within the EU or within the world to be even wider. I will try to use the example of the cybercrime to illustrate the practical elements and the practical dimension of our work, because the cybercrime is actually something that very nicely describes all the challenges that we are facing in prosecuting and investigating international cross-border crime. When you think about cybercrime, inevitably you know that this is a complex form of crime. Complex in many ways, because almost every criminal offense could be committed through cyberspace. It usually entails a lot of participants, and it usually is cross-border. So if it is cross-border, then international cooperation steps in play, because as it was explained by Ladislav earlier, we have to keep in mind that in the European Union and throughout the world, basically, the criminal proceedings, the criminal processes against perpetrators are solely national. So if somebody commits criminal offense in 2 countries, the prosecutors from country A cannot go to country B and do the prosecution there. They have to do the prosecution in the country A only for the crimes which they are competent for, and vice versa for the country B, or island B, as it was explained at the beginning. So it's very important for us, if we want to be successful in combating those types of crime, to find a way to work together as a team of different national authorities, different national prosecutors, sitting together, getting together, and decide how to prosecute, who to prosecute, and which way to prosecute to achieve the best results. So if we talk about cybercrime, of course it's clear it's always international. You have usually perpetrators sitting in one room in one country, sending the messages or communicating with servers, with technical equipment across the globe in many other countries, and trying to lure people in other countries to do something which they want them to do, to actually be a victim of the cyber attack or cyber crime. So it's a number of countries involved, and it's a number of technical issues to be solved. Now, we prosecutors are lawyers. We are not cyberspace engineers, and we do not have the special technical knowledge. So in those cases, additional layer of complexity is the fact that there is a technical dimension to the process. So not only ordinary police, not only ordinary prosecutors from other states, also people with expertise from other states and people with specific expertise have to be included in such investigations. So all those people have to work together as one team if we are to be successful. And this is where we come in. This is where Eurojust comes in, because we have the tools to facilitate and to enable that kind of cooperation. We represent the judicial response. Now, this is very important because we have a general public, so I will be a little bit more literate if you allow me. We see many times in the movies or in the action dramas how the police raids an action, storms the premises and arrests everyone, and everybody's happy. There's a happy end. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. Where the police end stops, the prosecutor's work begin, because police stop when they have sufficient suspicion, and then they handle the case to the prosecutor, and now it is on the prosecutor to bring the case to the court and achieve a conviction, to persuade the court that there is a certainty that this person did commit criminal offense. And we have to prove each and every element of the criminal offense with certainty. It is not enough for us to say, yes, it's probably likely that he did it, it's most likely that he did it, it's very probable that he did it. No, that's not enough. If we have very probable, in the end, it will be acquittal, the judgment will be acquittal, and the person will walk free, and we will be not facing success in the sense that the person has been put behind bars. So it has to be a lot of evidence, it has to be enough evidence, and what is even more important, it has to be obtained legally, in a legal fashion. Because one of the very important issues, which is very often overlooked by the let's say, a general populistic presentation of judicial proceedings, is the fact that, of course, it is very important how the evidence was gathered, which way. And that is perhaps even more emphasized in the cybercrime cases, because in order to obtain evidence, we not only have to travel around the world and to include the jurisdictions and the servers which might be somewhere on the far north, and the people who are committing the crime from some third country, we also have to use the technical means to get the information from those servers and from those information bases in the legal manner. That is very important, and there's a lot of legal expertise behind it. It doesn't sound very catchy, it doesn't sound very attractive, but there's a lot of this nitty-gritty technical legalistic work which has to be done. And Eurojust can support and can provide that the evidence is gathered in a legal manner, and it is, in the end, what we call admissible at the court. And that is very important, because if it is not admissible, it is as good as nothing. It only creates frustration on our side, because we know that somebody is actually has committed a crime, but we cannot prove it. And everybody is dissatisfied with that. So it has to be legally sound, and it has to be legally clear. All that is, of course, very problematic, and it's not easy to achieve in the cybercrime cases, because there's another dimension to it, and that is time. Time is usually and very often essential element in the cybercrime investigations, because whatever happens in the cybercrime, in a cyberspace, it is true. Everything is recorded some way or the other in this virtual cyber area. But it is also true that those recordings have limited time of existence. Some data is lost very quickly in a matter of hours or days. The other, perhaps, is stored a little bit longer. But what we have to do, we are confronted with the challenge to freeze and seize in a legal manner, in a legal fashion, as I explained, those data in time when those data is still available. So this is all what is required in investigation of criminal offense which is linked to cybercrime, and this is what has to be done when keeping in mind the islands which were described at the beginning by our president, because also in those cases the same principles apply. Only prosecutors in country A can only do so much, the prosecutors in country B can only do so much, and the prosecutors in country C can only do so much. To cover the whole 3 islands, or to cover the multitude of states, for them is necessary to sit together and start working together as a team. And there are options, and there are possibilities to do it, and I will just briefly give you a little bit of a description of it. You have heard in the presentation on our virtual tour that there are meeting rooms for coordination meetings, that there are meeting rooms for coordination centers. All that might sound a little bit abstract to you, but I will try to picture it as clearly and as simply as possible. If we have a criminal case of cybercrime in many countries, for instance, there was a case where the perpetrators took the virtual coins, the virtual money from one of the virtual banks in one country, and they came from the other country using the service from the third country outside the EU. We had to get together, and we did this at the coordination meeting. Now, coordination meeting is a thing which sounds a little bit simple. It is, in its idea, a simple thing, but it's very important. Because what it does, it actually brings people from all three countries to sit at the same table. And not just any people. It brings prosecutors from those countries to sit at the same room. And those prosecutors are backed and helped by the national members from Eurojust. Meaning that three countries are represented. Three national members are there. We national members, as you have heard in the presentation, we know each other very well. So there is no problem in communicating amongst us. And we bring our own prosecutors to meet personally with prosecutors from country B and country C and start discussing the case. That is very important, although it seems like very trivial, because usually those three prosecutors speak different languages. Usually those prosecutors come from three different judicial cultures, judicial traditions, and things which have a very clear meaning in one jurisdiction don't always have the same clear meaning in other jurisdiction. So it's very important that the national members are there and they help them communicate in a fashion that we, all of us, understand each other, what we want to do and what are the legal options of doing it. And all that is discussed in the coordination meeting in a real time, face-to-face, with a live translation in the premises of Eurojust. If you take that sort of cooperation level higher, we can also coordinate actions in real time, executing investigation actions across the globe or across the European Union at least in a coordinated fashion. Because if we decide on such coordination meeting that we have to, let's say, freeze certain data in certain servers outside EU, and we have to search the premises in country A, and we have to arrest some suspects in country B or C in within the European Union, it is very important that we do it coordinately, in a coordinated fashion. Because if you start searching the premises in country A and try to arrest the person in country B 1 hour later, it is already too late, because that person will be notified. There are house searches, I don't know, in Spain, and the person in Germany will know, I have to get out of the Germany because there is something happening. So it has to be coordinated, it has to be on the same moment, at the same time, it has to be done in a way that nobody escapes and no data is lost. And we can do it with a coordination center. That's a facility that you have seen on our presentation. That's a facility where coordinated action is actually guided or coordinated. Because on the coordination meeting, first the prosecutors agree what will be done, who will do what, and then through coordination center, we take care and we help them that all this is done in a correct manner at the right time, in the right sequence. And if something unexpected occurs, we can address it immediately in the real time and find a legal solution for this problem. So this is what we do in an essence. And if we want to upgrade that coordination, and if the case is really big and it requires a longer common cooperation, we can set up a joint investigation team, which was already mentioned. This is also a word which is often used and often heard, but perhaps not always is understood that this is really some sort of international agreement between the cooperating member states' authorities. For instance, if we have a joint investigation team between Slovenia, Spain, and Germany, it means that the people very high in hierarchy, which is stipulated by the law, who is entitled to sign such agreement, they agreed that we form a virtual, again virtual, a team of 3 prosecutors who will be, legally speaking, one team. There will be one office. There will not be 3 countries anymore. This is one team. So whatever is obtained in one country, it could be automatically shared with people, with colleagues in other 2 countries. That is actually a very elevated form of cooperation, and this is probably the future of such investigations, because we virtually create a unified team which is mixed of prosecutors and police officers, and also can include other experts for the field of which have the technical expertise for the cybercrime. If we speak about cybercrime, but if we are dealing with other types of crime, of course, they can only cover the other technical issues. So in this manner, what is created is actually this sort of coordinating body which is permanently there, and those colleagues who are the members of the JIT are day-to-day in the contacts, and they can coordinate directly. Of course, with the support of Eurojust, who offers logistical support, also financial support to such operations and so on. So I think this gives you a kind of idea. It's very difficult to describe it in such a short time. But I am happy to answer any questions that you might have at the end of our meeting, and I'm really delighted that you have been interested in taking part of this virtual tour. I hope you like it.
Thank you very much, Boštjan. We are getting some questions in the meanwhile. The first one is probably connected to the fact that this is an open day in The Hague. Why is Eurojust in The Hague? Why is this agency here?
Yes, I think what is important to clarify that this was not our decision. This was the decision of the member states, of our political masters, who decided that Eurojust will be located in The Hague. And I think that there are very good reasons for such a decision. First of all, The Hague, it's a beautiful city which has a special, unique brand. It's a city of peace and justice, and in The Hague, several international organizations of the United Nations, but also European Union are located and seated. So we really believe that Eurojust fits into this environment very well, contributing to the European security and justice. And last but not least, another good reason is that Europol is also seated in The Hague, and as it was described already by Boštjan, it's very important that police and prosecutors or judges work hand in hand. And actually, we are working very closely with Europol, working hand in hand, making sure that those who are committing crime, international crime, are arrested by the national authorities and prosecuted in the member states.
Thank you very much, Ladislav. Another question. Digitalization is one of the priorities of the European Union. Can you tell me more about Eurojust involvement in the digital criminal justice proposal?
Yes, as it was described, let's use again the example of Boštjan's case, because today what we see is that the whole world is digital. So if we ask for a witness hearing, usually we don't get a piece of paper as it was 20 years ago, but we get a PDF or we get a Word document which is then shared between two countries electronically. Also in cybercrime cases, we need a lot of data. Also in cybercrime cases, we may need to seize computers, laptops, telephones, hard disks. So all this is done in electronic way, in electronic form. And we have to make sure that all this data, and usually these are huge files, are actually sent from one country to another. Sometimes this piece of evidence is needed in both investigations, in two countries or in several countries. And in that case, we have to make sure that we have copies, actually mirroring copies of those files. And those files are then available for different criminal proceedings. Now, we have to make sure, and this is the reason for digital criminal justice, that prosecutors are equipped with modern tools which would allow sharing of evidence in a secure manner between countries. It's also important that prosecutors within the EU and also involving third countries have secure means of communication. We have to make sure that this information which is exchanged about ongoing operations, about house searches, about days of arrests, about seizure of bank accounts, is simply very sensitive information. So this information deserves proper protection, and actually we have to make sure that this is done as described by Boštjan, This is done in real time in a secure manner. So this is also another element of digital criminal justice. And last but not least, let me use another piece of information related to Eurojust counterterrorism register, which is based on the fact that the EU should have information about all ongoing investigations in counterterrorism investigations. For one reason, first of all, we can better coordinate. We can inform some countries that there are criminal activities on their territory they are even not aware of. And we can also avoid that the same person would be prosecuted in two countries for the same criminal act.
Thank you very much. We have a question about if we hold any meetings in the building during COVID. And before you answer, I have to tell you that you have to take your mask off. I'm sorry, but it's interfering with the sound, I'm told.
Okay. Shall I take that? Or?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Boštjan.
Well, that's a very good question. The COVID crisis has been quite a challenge for us because, as I described, a lot of our work is done in direct contact, and this direct contact is important because people get to know each other personally if they personally physically meet. If you do it via the video conference, it's a little bit different, and it was a lot of questions in our minds how to cope with present limitations. Well, I can be, I'm happy to tell you that I think we have been very successful in adapting to this new environment, at least from what I hear from practitioners back home. We have managed to actually transform the meetings, the coordination meetings, into the virtual meetings. Sometimes we also have the real face-to-face meetings if the circumstances allow for it, but that doesn't happen that often. More or less, most of the coordination meetings nowadays is conducted through the video conferencing. And that is quite a challenge also, because setting up a video conference in a secure manner is not easy. Because as you can imagine, we exchange very sensitive data, not only personal data, but very sensitive operational data, which cannot be leaked, and we have to make sure that the connections that we use are 100% safe. We manage this. We set up a special video conferencing equipment within our premises with servers located at our premises, so the security elements are all there. What is important is that we also provide at those meetings, and that's really essential in many cases, we are able to provide the translation, the real-time translation of the meeting. And that is also not easy to achieve on the video conference. It might seem easy at the beginning, but you know, if you have the consecutive translation, like in the fashion that first something is said in English, and then everybody waits and everybody listens to translation to Finnish, and then everybody waits and listens to translation to Spanish, and then everybody waits and listens to translation, I don't know, to Hungarian, that takes a lot of time. But in order to have that simultaneous translation at the same time, you have to have parallel channels open, and this is what we have achieved. We have done this, and I had just had on Wednesday a very successful coordination meeting where we used 3 languages, and it went practically, I can tell you, without a twitch. So I think the COVID crisis and the limitations, of course, impact our work, but we have to adjust, and we have managed to adjust quite nicely, if you ask me.
Thank you very much. Now we have a question from someone who would like to follow in your footsteps and potentially become a criminal prosecutor at some point. And they are asking, what does it take to become a prosecutor? I suppose this depends on which country you're working in, but if you can give some examples, I think that would be interesting for our listeners to hear.
I will leave it to Ladislav, but one thing is crucial. You have to be the best of lawyer. You have to be the best type of lawyer. You have to have integrity, and you must not fall into a temptation of greed and other things. You have to be really strong mentally, and only the best people are prosecutors, let's face it, huh?
Just continue, Boštjan, because you have started so nicely. Please.
Okay. Well, okay, joking aside, prosecutorial profession is not an easy one, but it's nice because you always know that you are on the right side of the law. You don't have moral dilemmas usually because you know you're doing the right thing, and you have to do it legally, and there's no other way. And in order to become a national member, you first have to become a prosecutor, normally, usually a prosecutor, sometimes also a judge or a magistrate, it depends on the jurisdiction. But you have to follow the profession in judiciary. And you have to, of course, be involved in international cooperation, international cases. You have to be experienced in this respect. And of course, you have to go through the selection procedure domestically. Because as it was explained at the beginning, and perhaps this is overlooked many, many times, national members such as we are, Ladislav and me, we are appointed by our member states. So our countries send us, and our countries select the candidates, and our countries appoint candidates, and we also get paid from our countries. We are not paid by the European Union. This is also one of the, let's say, specialities of Eurojust, but that all adds to the variety and colorness of our experience. So first, you have to be a good professional domestically, and then you can pursue the career in international waters. But of course, you have to be determined to do the right thing all the time, and that's important.
Absolutely. Someone who likes statistics, can you say how many coordination meetings take place in a week, generally, at Eurojust, or how does this work?
So actually, it's difficult to say how many per week. Last year, we had more than 400 coordination meetings. So more or less, it's a little bit more than one per day. But sometimes we have very busy days when all our meeting rooms are actually occupied. Sometimes we have less busy days. Usually, summer period is less busy than the rest of the year. Yes, just about the caseload, Eurojust last year was supporting more than 8,000 ongoing cases. I checked the statistics before this meeting, and actually for the first 9 months we were supporting 6,000 cases.
Another process question. Is there a general timeline on how long it takes from, say, the first coordination meeting until we have someone judged and found guilty in a court? What's your expectation when you organize a coordination meeting?
Well, that's a very good question, because this is something that is difficult to explain to general public, and I understand it. People have expectations. We all have expectations, but we have to be realistic. From the moment of beginning of investigation to the moment of conviction, and to the moment when this conviction is final, it could be a long time. It depends on the case. Sometimes, even in complex cases, such cases are tried quickly. The other times, it takes a lot of time. It could be years. There is no general rule, because it depends on the complexity of the issues and on the complexity of the issues which are then disputed also at the court. Because sometimes the investigation is long, and then the court proceedings are short because people admit. And it's kind of fast and easy. But on the other times, on the other hand, there are cases where people, of course, they don't admit guilt, and we have long court sessions, and each and every evidence has to be clearly argumented that it was obtained in a legal manner, that it actually presents the proof, and it's proving one of the elements, and all the elements, as I already said, have to be proven beyond any doubt, beyond any reasonable doubt. As a matter of fact, in Slovenia, the term which law is using is there has to be certainty. Certainty for each and every element of the crime. Perhaps I can just use it as a short description, because it doesn't really link that much to Eurojust, but it links to criminal justice in general. If you, for instance, see that somebody is coming into your house of your neighbor and walking out with a TV from his house, all of us would say that was a theft. Normally, it probably is. But legally speaking, it may not be, because your neighbor of yours perhaps is owing money to somebody, and this person is wanting to collect his debt, and instead of, because the neighbor doesn't pay, he says, okay, I'm going to take his TV and I'm going to pay my debt. This could be a criminal offense too, but it's a different crime. It's not a theft. Or it could be something else. It could be that this person who walked into the door of your neighbor was actually convinced by somebody else, look, there is my TV in that house, and that he gives him an explanation why he personally cannot do it. Go in, please, and get it for me. Then that's a completely different situation. So what I'm trying to picture you is the fact that even if everything seems easy and clear, it may not be, because if the defense raises those questions, we have to provide 100% sure and clear answers that this is exactly what was happening. It was theft, it was not a collection of debt, it was not somebody sent into the house not knowing what he's doing, but it was clear, intentional criminal offense. So this is what we have to do, and it sometimes takes a long time. And it's difficult to explain. I know it hurts us too. We would like to see it shorter, but that's the reality which we have to
Esther,
face.
if I may just to add and invite our guests to our website. We have a collection of cases on our website, and actually you can read about them much more. Let's use perhaps one of the most successful story of Eurojust is the Polino case. And this Polino case actually required several years until a coordination action actually took place. So I can only confirm what Boštjan said. It may require several years and joint efforts of many countries until we get to a coordinated action.
Thank you very much, Ladislav and Boštjan. I need to close this session because we have reached our time limit. So thank you so much for your contributions. I also would like to invite our visitors to visit our website and follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And we will try to publish an edited version of these sessions on YouTube next week. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a lovely day. Goodbye.